If you come to the readings that we do at the Cornelia Street Cafe every month, the Italian American Writers Association, which we founded about 16 years ago, we have an open reading every month. Anybody can read. Mostly Italian American writers read. Most of the people who read, most of the people who come are young people. And it's not usual Italian American event with fat men wearing ribbons and giving each other plaques and all that kind of stuff. There's none of that. Instead, it's about contemporary life. People dealing with the issues and sentiments that characterize life at the present moment. So, younger Italian Americans are still alive. They're around, and they do show up. And not only to things like this, but other things as well. But that is a particularly good spot for it.
Yeah, you talked about ribbons and plaques, and why is that Italian American exchange so many prizes and awards amongst themselves?
Well, it's an American thing, and it may also be a provincial thing. I mean, if you go to a little town in the province of Agrigento or someplace like that, everybody has a title. Everyone's a commendatore or cavaliere or whatever. And I once gave a speech at a town in southern, I won't name it. No, it's not connected with me, but with a friend of mine. I gave a speech at an event that was sponsored by the local mineral water company. Mm-hmm. And I had to go, because of this, after the event, we went out to visit the plant where they bottle the water. And I was given an award at the water factory. It was a little box, and inside the box there was a medallion, and there was something maybe even in Latin. I still have it, but I haven't read it in a long time. I was given a prize. What was that for? I don't know. I took it. We always take prizes when people give them to us. But so that's part of it, and it's also a very American thing. Time Magazine has a Person of the Year, right? And it's characteristic of life among marginalized groups, you can call them, minority groups, you can call them, ethnic groups, depends on how you want to think about it, subnational groups, that they meet together, that they give each other recognition, very often when nobody else even knows that they're there. And this is true for any group, not just Italians. It's true for Albanians or African Americans or just anybody, that they need to recognize one another in order to keep going as a group. I think that's the reason. I used to be used to really bother me, but now I have enough of these prizes myself that I've begun to see the point,
Professor Viscusi, in your opinion, will it still be necessary in 20 years' time for someone to refer to themselves as Italian American?
It isn't necessary now, actually, but it's desirable now. I mean, that's the big difference.
Fashionable even?
Yeah, sure. When I was a kid, it was still a stigma to be Italian American for two reasons. Partly because of the immigration, when so many poor and miserable people were here. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Italians landed in New York every single year for years and years and years. It was an awful lot for the Americans to digest. That's the first thing. The second thing is the war. Remember, Benito Mussolini on December 11th, 1941, declared war on the United States of America. A date that will live in, maybe not infamy, maybe objection might be a better word for it. But it's certainly an astonishing fact. But it left us with a lot to overcome. After the war, it wasn't so great to be Italian. Italy was a very unhappy place for a long time after the war. We saw all these movies, these Rossellini movies and Pasolini movies about what it was like to be poor in Italy in 1948 and 1952. Starting in the 60s, that began to change. The first big impact, I suppose, was La Dolce Vita, which came. And we saw, hey, look at that. People in Italy living well. They're not all just sleeping with chickens. It got to be, like, when I went to high school in Manhattan in the 50s, in the late 50s. All along Madison Avenue, all the good restaurants and all the fancy shops were French. By the 1970s, all of those same places were Italian. And now, even all the other ones are Italian. So it's become chic to be Italian.
So it's become French to be Italian.
Yes, very well put. Very well put. Yes, it's become French to be Italian. I like that. So people want to associate themselves with, Prada and Versace and Armani, and maybe not Versace, but certainly Armani. People go to Italy. People have started to learn what real Italian food tastes like. So there's a lot of advantages to it. Italian Americans now have plenty of money. Even the ones who don't study Italian in college go to. I have a nephew, for example, who's an executive in a corporation, makes pretty good money. Last summer, he took his family. They rented actually a sort of a castle in Tuscany that came with servants and all this other kind of stuff. And he came back a convert. He never wanted to really be Italian before. Now, yes, sirree, I'm Italian. And I think that's very typical. And I'm sure that, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? We hardly know what's happening today. But if this trend continues, when people talk about Italian American, they always make the mistake of associating it with what it meant in 1932 when Mario Soldati came here. But that's not what it means anymore. That's not what it means. Even outside of this international cosmopolitan arena that we're talking about, last fall I taught a core course at Brooklyn College that I had invented on Italian American literature and film. Now this is a core course. Everybody has to take some core courses, and so they could choose this. Half the students in that class were not Italian. Why were they taking the course? Or not Italian American. Why were they taking the course? Well, of that half, I would say maybe half of them were going with or were engaged to or even married to an Italian American, and they wanted to learn about the culture. They wanted to understand this profound culture. And then the rest of them, I think, had the idea that it's really cool to be Italian American. Italian Americans, at least according to the films, unlike everybody else in America, still eat dinner around the table. They don't go to McDonald's. They still have families. They're not afraid to be sexy. They're not afraid to be dangerous. People like that. Especially young people like that. So, it doesn't mean what it used to mean. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, thank you, Professor Viscusi, for being
thank
here
you
with us today, and we do appreciate you being here, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us again.
Sure. I like these tough questions.
Thank you very much.
We like asking
Thank
them.
you.